On an island, Hank was about to hang himself. Just as he was about to close his eyes, a body floated down the beach in the surf. He rushed forward to perform CPR, but the body didn't respond at all, and he let out a long series of farts. That shook the whole body. Hank was dumbfounded. And then another wave came in. The farts are like an engine, carrying the body away. Hank, who had planned to end his life, saw the light. He mounted the body and rowed out into the open sea. Hank woke up. Hank woke up to find a bag of cookies. It brought tears to Hank's eyes, who had been starving for so long. They were on another deserted island, and their cell phones were dead. But hardcore farting was going on all the way. In the trash on the mountain, Hank found a cork to solve the problem. He also found a little yellow book. It was raining heavily at night. Hank spent the night in a cave with the body, alone. Hank was hungry and thirsty. When morning came, he planned to leave the body behind. Suddenly, water came out of the corpse's mouth. Hank was shocked. Had the body come to save him? After Hank had received several glasses of water, Hank was surprised when the body spoke. But he realized that although the body could talk, it had lost its memory. Hank tried to jog his memory. Hank wanted to refresh his memory. So he made a model of the body from whatever he could find in the mountains, of the resources he could find in the mountains, to help him reacquaint himself with the world, and named him Manny. With Manny by his side, Hank was no longer alone, and in the course of his travels, he discovered more of Manny's amazing skills to help him shave and live, cutting down trees, hunting, and more. For Hank, to Hank, Manny's fall from the sky was like a Swiss Army knife with all the bells and whistles. One day, Manny saw the little yellow book, and was intrigued by the little yellow book he'd found. Hank saw it and started teaching him. Hank started teaching him about love, and by some miracle, Manny had a heartbeat. He was so excited to discuss it with Hank. Then he looked at the girl on Hank's cell phone and started to stare. Hank thought he remembered something, so he lied to Manny and told him. Hank lied to Manny and told him that it was Sarah, the girl he loved when he was alive. Hank dressed up as Sarah for the occasion. Hank dressed up as Sarah and guided Manny on the bus to find the courage to confess his love. Gradually, Manny realized what it was like to have a heart attack. At night, they had an outdoor party. They watched an outdoor movie, despite their strange behavior. But here, there was no need for the world to look the other way. There was a lot of fun on the road. One night, Hank suddenly realized he had a cell phone signal, and realized he was out of the mountains. And that's when he saw a picture of Sarah with another man. Memories came flooding back. That's when it all started. He saw the beautiful Sarah on the bus. He fell in love with her. But he didn't have the courage to tell her. Sarah had nothing to do with it. Soon after, she got married, and had a little girl. And for all that, but she was too weak to accept it. The next day, they finally came out of the forest. They saw a villa, and through the window, Hank saw the Sarah he'd been longing for. It turns out they're in Sarah's backyard. Manny encouraged Hank to be brave, to express his love. When Hank was afraid to face the harsh reality, Hank was afraid to face the harsh reality. When Sarah's daughter saw them, Manny excitedly spit and farted as a sign of friendship. But the gesture made the little girl cry. Seeing the girl's reaction, Manny's heart was broken and he fainted. Then the police and reporters arrived. They were going to dispose of Manny as an unclaimed body. Hank couldn't accept that, because Manny he was given the power of rebirth, so he grabbed Manny's body and ran away. The police found a picture of Sarah on his cell phone. They suspected that Hank was more than just a desert island survivor. Then, while chasing Hank, the police found his virtual world on a deserted island. In the backyard of Sarah's house, turns out Hank was a depressed, lonely man, and had some quirks that people couldn't understand. Into farting in public. That made him out of place in the world. He couldn't even communicate with his father, because in his father's eyes, he was a retard. Hank's entire emotional well-being lay with Sarah, but because of his cowardice, Sarah married someone else. Hank couldn't take the weight of it all. Hank went into a psychotic break. He hid in Sarah's backyard. He spent his days in self-gratification. And Manny was just another persona in his imagination. His whole interaction with Manny is actually his own spiritual redemption and resurrection. At the end of the movie, Hank farts in front of the police and reporters, and Manny's corpse smiled and sank away. The whole movie seems to be absurd. The whole movie seems absurd, but it's actually heavy. The screenwriter's arrangement How reasonable is the plot, and how sad. How much grief and disbelief did Hank have to endure? Hank was so devastated that he did something like this to comfort himself. I don't know what Hank went through. And finally, this is a different kind of loser's woe. It's a solid movie that soothes the losers. It's a great way to comfort the losers. Don't be afraid. It's okay to be unloved. Come on, let's fantasize. In the world of fantasy, you are your own god.